What are the Dalai Lama's secrets to increasing emotional resilience? In this video, we're going to reveal all 11 to you. It might be tough to maintain our composure when faced with challenging circumstances. Our misery is largely out of our hands. A conflict, a natural tragedy, or an unanticipated basement flood could all cause you to suffer. You are powerless to alter these outside factors. The Dalai Lama argues that although some forms of suffering are unavoidable, most human suffering is preventable since it results from our emotional reactions to our surroundings. The Dalai Lama promotes developing equanimity, what he refers to as mental immunity. The capacity to keep a composed and upbeat frame of mind even in the midst of difficulty. You can lessen internal suffering brought on by unpleasant emotions like worry, wrath, envy, grief, and loneliness by practicing equanimity. Equilibrium can be developed with the use of mindfulness. Author of Mindfulness in Plain English Bhante Gunaratana defines mindfulness as the capacity to examine one's own thoughts and sensations without getting sucked into them. Regular meditation or mindfulness practice can enable you to ride the waves of your emotional ups and downs without feeling guilty, thereby reducing internal suffering. It is explained by Tutu and the Dalai Lama that a great deal of our internal suffering is brought on by fear, which is frequently the source of our negative emotions. We'll go through several techniques you can do to develop emotional resilience to damaging feelings brought on by fear. You must first improve your emotional intelligence, which entails greater awareness and control of your emotions, in order to become more resistant to unpleasant emotions. Self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. According to Travis Bradbury and Gene Greaves in their book Emotional Intelligence 2.0, are the 4 pillars of emotional intelligence. You can analyze your emotions, control emotional triggers, create healthy thought and behavior patterns, and ultimately increase your success by cultivating these 4 pillars. 1. Anxiety. Anxiety can occasionally be caused by fear of things we cannot control. Both fear and anxiety cause feelings of worry and unease, which is how they are related to one another. But while anxiety isn't always grounded in reality and might linger even when there's no genuine danger, fear is a legitimate emotional reaction to perceived danger or threat. Chronic stress, which is unhealthy and can interfere with daily life, is brought on by this ongoing anxiety. Neurologist Robert Sapolsky explains in Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers that chronic stress exists because the human stress response evolved in response to short-term, physical stress factors like finding shelter or childbirth, but it hasn't evolved to cope with the long-term sources of stress that are more typical of modern life, like meeting deadlines or planning for retirement. Chronic stress is becoming increasingly common as a result of our failure to manage persistent psychological and social pressures. You can keep in mind 2 things when you're feeling concerned about something you can't control. First, as both Tutu and the Dalai Lama emphasize, mankind is by its very essence a cooperative species. We all rely on and are dependent upon one another in our interdependent society. Therefore, you don't have to find a solution on your own to whatever difficulty you encounter. In fact, you'll probably have fewer odds of success if you think you can handle a situation by yourself. Ryan Holiday argues an ego is the enemy that having an exaggerated sense of one's own competence will reduce one's chances of success. He contends that ego frequently results in failure because it leads individuals to exaggerate their knowledge and abilities, understates potential dangers, and discount the potential contributions of others. Second, Tutu and the Dalai Lama advise you to reframe threats as challenges. Whenever you encounter something that you initially see as a threat, a sort of stress resilience that will assist you in avoiding the risks of chronic stress is reframing the perceived threat as something that your body and mind are preparing to conquer. Other methods to lessen worry and persistent stress are suggested by Sapolsky and Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. These include keeping your life as predictable as you can, starting a regular exercise regimen, and making sure you have a strong social support system. If you like this video so far, please let us know by pressing the like button. If you want to see more videos like this, be sure to subscribe. 2. Anger. Frustration or rage might also result from fear of things we can't control. For instance, if a coworker is promoted before you, you can become enraged and vent to a coworker or level unjustified charges. The worry of not obtaining what you need, the fear of not being respected, or the fear of not being loved are likely the causes of this rage. Anger is rarely beneficial since your emotions override your capacity for logical thought, similar to persistent stress. There are various sorts of rage, despite the fact that most of us associate it with loud or violent outbursts. For instance, rage might express itself in passive-aggressive conduct. Or it can be internalized and manifest as shame or negative self-talk. What am I frightened of? Consider this when you catch yourself reacting in anger to your fear. Then work to address the underlying reason for your emotional reaction. You can accept accountability by reflecting on your part in bringing about the circumstance that made you angry. Keeping in mind that the individual or people with whom you are at odds also have their own fears and values guiding them can also be helpful in gaining a broader perspective. Some psychologists contend that rather than automatically demonizing rage, we should consider it to be a constructive emotion. Anger, for instance, can indicate the presence of injustice or a potential threat. Psychologists advise against concealing rage, even while they do not support using violence to vent anger. Instead, they advise expressing anger constructively to spur constructive change. 3. Envy. Our dread can occasionally appear as envy. Even while it's our nature to compare ourselves to others, envy emerges when those comparisons lead to dissatisfaction. When someone has something that we don't, we frequently experience envy and worry that this makes us less than others. According to studies on happiness, upward comparisons where you measure yourself against someone you think to be superior are particularly harmful to your pleasure. According to research, using social media encourages social comparisons, which increases feelings of jealousy. Social media frequently portrays an idealized and misleading view of other people's lives, where people only share the best experiences, successes, and goods. When people compare their life to the seemingly ideal lives of others, it can cause them to feel inadequate and insecure. The Dalai Lama and Tutu have different ideas about how to deal with envy. Tutu contends that jealousy is a normal emotion and that you should embrace it when it happens without feeling bad about it. He advises utilizing envy as an incentive to accomplish your goals, practicing thankfulness for what you currently have, or contemplating the source of your envy as a means of overcoming it. On the other hand, according to the Dalai Lama, jealousy is a bad emotion that you can and should suppress before it even manifests. He emphasizes that consumer culture is the source of envy. Therefore, you are less likely to sense jealousy if you place a higher priority on acquiring experience and knowledge than material possessions. He also suggests the Buddhist virtue of mudita, or compassionate kindness, which involves acknowledging the accomplishments and contentment of others. The Dalai Lama underlines that happiness is not a finite resource, and that it should not be diminished by the happiness of others. For the Dalai Lama's 80th birthday, a week-long friendship celebration with his fellow Peace Nobel Prize winner, Desmond Tutu, was planned. The goal was to discuss joy and how to be joyful in a world filled with sorrow. The Book of Joy, which grew out of this enchanted encounter, contains conversations between these two spiritual leaders as well as tidbits of knowledge. The teaching of the 8 foundations of joy is the main lesson that has stuck with me and evolved into a recurring motif in my meditation. 4 are heart attributes, and 4 are spiritual qualities. 4. Point of view. We feel less frightened and happy when we view the same event from diverse perspectives and from a distance. To have a more thorough and equitable understanding of reality and to guide more appropriate actions. The Dalai Lama advises studying each situation from at least 6 diverse points of view. We are encouraged to find the blessing in the curse, the lesson in the failure, and the joy in the agony. The same incident can appear as a tragedy or as an opportunity. Concretely, changing from I to us is one approach to altering viewpoints. The biggest predictor of a short life expectancy is really egocentrism. Those who use the words I, me, and my frequently run the risk of dying from heart attacks earlier in life and experiencing greater sadness. This effect is even more potent than smoking, high cholesterol, or high blood pressure. In a humorous metaphor, Mind Valley's Vishen Lakhiani recalled how, as a child, his parents had urged him to eat his vegetables. Although he didn't care for the flavor, his parents recognized what was best for him. When life hands us experiences we don't like, he advises us to change our perspective. What if a higher consciousness is telling us to eat our vegetables? Losing someone we love is one of life's worst lessons, but it's also one of its greatest reminders. To live in the moment and appreciate relationships more than anything else. It promotes empathy for those who experience similar adversity. If we can accept it, it merits some blessing. 5. Modesty. Our isolation and worry are alleviated when we accept our shared humanity. We were designed to rely on one another and help one another. Humus is the root of the words humanity and humor, as well as humility. We will all return to the same dirt from which we came. Real arrogance results from insecurity. The fear of being inferior drives the desire to be seen as superior to others. Humor, exercise, and awareness are all ways to practice humility. Our inclination for joy is fundamentally based on our capacity to laugh at our own shortcomings. May I not feel superior to anyone whenever I see them, says a Tibetan prayer. May I sincerely express my gratitude to the person in front of me? 6. Comedy. Unexpected words from Douglas Abrams, who oversaw the Book of Joy's drafting, are: the ability to laugh at oneself is a universal sign of spiritual advancement. I'm tempted to think after interacting with a number of spiritual authorities. The shortest distance between two people is a heartfelt chuckle. Humor reflects the confidence that we love one another and do not intend to disparage or offend one another. We may connect with sincerity and compassion when we can laugh at the ridiculousness of our own prejudice and hatred. It is the most effective technique to combat disrespect, brutality, and uncertainty. Humor is a skill that must be developed, just like everything else. We can begin by making fun of ourselves and realizing that everyone experiences dumb things. 7. Recognition. This saying is one of my favorites. Change what you can't accept, and accept what you can change. Accepting what happens to us is a sign of spiritual growth since it involves going with the flow of life rather than fighting against it. It enables clearer vision and more suitable responses to life. Perspective is important, but acceptance also helps us recognize the positive in everything that occurs. Every speck of snow is falling in its proper place. Acceptance is the ability to separate ourselves from the satisfaction of living from the accomplishment of a goal. To be motivated in progress, we need a goal, but we don't need to pursue it with impatience or a craving for achievement. Accepting what happens to us makes us more open, interested, and confident about the future. 8. Forgiving. Every one of us is capable of experiencing sadness and sympathy for those who trample on mankind. Nobody can't forgive, and nobody can't be forgiven. The Dalai Lama always strives to maintain his compassion and concern for the Chinese officials. Despite all the suffering they caused him and his followers, he continued to practice visualizing taking someone else's rage or fear and giving it to them in exchange for love and forgiveness. It's important to note that forgiving someone doesn't entail accepting their poor behavior or their presence in our lives. It is essential to denounce and put an end to the terrible deed, as well as to defend ourselves against the destructiveness of some people, without inciting hatred toward the offender. According to Archbishop Desmond Tutu, forgiveness is the only way to heal and release the past and free ourselves from it. Examining the circumstances that led to a terrible response might help us develop forgiveness as well. Nobody is cruel or vindictive by nature, but circumstances can foster rage, ignorance, and prejudice. It is possible to view our foes with compassion if we shift our attention from the horrible behavior to the history that preceded it. 9. Thank you. Remember how fortunate you are to be alive every morning as you wake up. Recognizing all that keeps us connected to the web of life and all that made it possible for us to live. The life we do now is the essence of gratitude, which is a form of spiritual pleasure. Gratitude makes us happy, not happiness makes us grateful, the saying goes. Steindl-Rast, David. In the Tibetan tradition, monks are instructed that celebrating our own and other people's good deeds is the best way to generate positive karma with the least amount of work. People that are grateful are also seen as being more giving, sympathetic, and helpful to others around them. The promise made by our own mortality is that every moment is a present that won't ever come around again. Gratitude is a sign of accepting reality, embracing the good in any situation, both happy and difficult, that the universe sends our way. We have countless things to be thankful for, including our parents, teachers, job providers, doctors, bread bakers, cloth weavers, home builders, law writers, artists, pollinators of our flowers, and ecosystem regulators. Thinking back on all that the people around us and who came before we have given to us is a practice we can do anywhere, at any time. 10. Kindness. Happiness comes from helping others. When you feel helpful to someone you love, your own suffering fades away. According to legend, Buddha said, "What exactly gives you all the other qualities when you already have them? It is out of kindness." The factor of compassion is what links the quality of empathy to deeds of kindness, charity, and other acts of altruism. Even when we are in a difficult situation, we should always ask, "How can I help you?" This is a driver that turns our misery into satisfaction and even euphoria. Being around compassion spreads it, and seeing compassion in action improves our moral standing. Videos showing humans putting their lives in danger to save animals are popular because of this. We are all lifted up and motivated by them. In addition to loving ourselves, taking care of our needs, and accepting who we are as whole person with our strengths and shortcomings, we should show compassion to others and to ourselves. While having self-compassion does not imply we should not have high expectations for ourselves. It does mean that when those goals are not met, we should accept that we tried our best and move on to the next lesson. We must treat ourselves the same way we would a trusted friend. 11. Kindness. We will both give and receive. The natural flow of energy is in this direction. Compassion naturally leads to generosity, and current research in neuroscience shows that generosity is one of the 4 essential neuronal circuits for long-term happiness. Generosity increases longevity and health. All religions place a high value on charity, with an unspoken rule that we should give back to our community by allocating 10% of our income. That might be a lot of money and a significantly better world on a global basis. Importantly, spending money on others can make people happy. Have you ever regretted making a nice donation or purchasing a lovely gift? Since we feel compelled to contribute to a better world, there exist a great number of non-profit organizations. There are 3 types of generosity according to Buddhist doctrine to overcome fear, which may be accomplished by guidance, comfort, or protection. Transferring knowledge, moral and ethical precepts, assisting individuals in moving toward greater autonomy and enjoyment. The tendency of our modern Western civilization to value individualism has a negative effect on mental health because it limits our ability to be physically present for one another, to be helpful to one another, and to perceive that our lives are meaningful. However, it's a terrific opportunity to increase awareness, actively ponder, brainstorm, and take action in the direction of our own delight. One of these magical essences that grows when shared is joy, along with love. Our souls and those around us will both benefit when we learn to cultivate our own joy. Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video.